Hello there, my little goldfinches. How are you? Our story today is going to be another Dr. Seuss one, and this one is called The Best Nest. What about those two words? Best nest. Do they rhyme? Yes, they do. Best and nest rhyme. All right, so let's read The Best Nest. Now, this is not one that I've heard of before, so it's not one of my old favorites, but I can't wait to read it. Oh, it looks very good. The Best Nest. Where does it be? Oh, it looks like a long one. Holy moly. Alrighty, there it is. The Best Nest. See how they end the same? That's because they rhyme. Written and illustrated by P.D. Eastman. You know what it says on that mailbox? U.S. Mail. So the man that wrote, or woman, I don't know if P.D. is a man or a woman, wrote and drew the pictures. Goodbye. Goodbye. Why are they saying goodbye? Oh, that's the old one. Oh, that was the other one. Sorry. Here's a bird. Mr. Bird was happy. He was so happy he had to sing. This was Mr. Bird's song. I love my house, I love my nest. In all the world my nest is best. Look at her face. You think she thinks that's right? Then Mrs. Bird came out of the house. It's not the best nest, she said. Aw, I wonder why she doesn't think it's the best nest. I'm tired of this old place, said Mrs. Bird. I hate it. Let's look for a new place right now. So they left the old place to look for a new one. This place looks nice, said Mr. Bird. Let's move in here. Well, it looks like it's right by the town. There's the post office. I don't know what that is. And this is the grocery. They're going to move in there in that little hole in the tree. Let's see. But someone else had already moved in. Remember what that is? Raccoon. So they looked at another house. This one looks nice, said Mr. Bird. And there's nobody in it. Did you know that sometimes birds make houses in boots? They do. Uh-oh. You're wrong, said Mrs. Bird. This house belongs to a foot. Oh, there's the postman or the post mail person. So they went on looking. I like this one, said Mr. Bird. It has a pretty red flag. It has a pretty red flag on the roof. I've always wanted a house with a flag, said Mrs. Bird. Let me wait till the dogs are out. I've always wanted a house with a flag, said Mrs. Bird. Maybe this place will be all right. Think that's a good place for them to live? What's that called? It's called a mailbox. Who puts mail in the mailbox? Yeah, the mail person. Oh, look at that. But it was not all right. I guess I made a mistake, said Mr. Bird. Not a good place to live. You make too many mistakes, said Mrs. Bird. I'm going to pick out the next house. And here it is, right here. Oh, looks like there's a little crack. They're going to go in there and make a nest. A lot of birds do that. That looks like it's a church steeple. And what's in there? Yep, a bell. They went in. They looked around. Isn't it too big? Asked Mr. Bird. I like this big place, said Mrs. Bird. This is the place to build our new nest. What do you think's going to happen? You think it's a good place to build a nest? Think about it. What do you think's going to happen? There's a great big bell in there. Do you think they're going to want to live there with all that noise? Let's see. They went right to work. They needed many things to build their nest. First, they got some hay. They got some soda straws and broom straws. They got some sweater string. That's what birds use to build their nests. All different things. But they don't do that. They got some stocking strings, and some mattress stuffing. I'm taking it right out of that. What's that called? He's laying on. Begins with an H. Hammock. He's laying in a hammock and they took the stuffing out. Very busily making their nest. They got some horsehair. They got some man hair. They're taking it from, what's that called? That men get on their face sometimes if they don't shave. Begins with a B. Beard. Yep, that's a beard. Soon they had all the hay, all the straw, all the string, all the stuffing, all the horsehair, and all the man hair they could carry. They took it all back to build their nest. Look at all that. Mr. and Mrs. Bird worked very hard. It took them the rest of the morning to finish their nest. Look where they're building it. Right on top of the bell. Oh no. This nest is really the best, said Mrs. Bird. I want to stay here forever. There they are. There's Mr. Bird. Mr. Bird was very happy too. He went out to the top of his house. He sang his song again. I love our house, I love our nest. In all the world, our nest is best. He was so busy singing, he didn't even see Mr. Parker coming. There's Mr. Parker. Every day at 12 o'clock, Mr. Parker came to the church. Mr. Parker came to pull a rope. The rope went up to the bird's new nest. The rope rang the big bell right under Mrs. Bird's nest. Bong, bong, bong. Look at her. Mrs. Bird got out of there as fast as she could fly. Bong, 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 bong. Was that a good place to build a nest? No. When Mr. Bird came in, all he could see was a mess of hay and string and stuffing and horsehair and man hair and straws. Where was Mrs. Bird? I will look for her until I find her, said Mr. Bird. He looked high. He looked low. He looked everywhere for Mrs. Bird. Where do you think she went? Where do you think she could have gone? He looked down into a chimney, but Mrs. Bird wasn't there. Where do you think she went? I have an idea. He looked down into a water barrel, but Mrs. Bird wasn't there. Then he saw a big fat cat. There was a big fat smile. There was a big fat smile on the fat cat's face. There were some pretty brown feathers near the fat cat's mouth. See the feathers? Uh-oh. Do you know what cats do? They eat birds. Mr. Bird began to cry. Oh dear, he cried. This big fat cat has eaten Mrs. Bird. Oh, sad. Oh, look how sad he is. Mr. Bird flew off. I'll never see Mrs. Bird again, he cried. It was getting dark. It began to rain. It rained harder and harder. Mr. Bird could not see where he was going. Oh, poor Mr. Bird. Crash! Mr. Bird bumped into something. What do you think he bumped into? It was his old house. That old house that Mrs. Bird hated. I'll go inside, said Mr. Bird. I'll rest here until the rain stops. What do you think's going to happen? What do you think's going to happen? What do you think? Ah, Mr. Bird went in, and there was Mrs. Bird sitting there singing. I love my house, I love my nest. In all the world, this nest is best. You? Here? Gasped Mr. Bird. I thought you hated this old nest. Mrs. Bird smiled. I used to hate it, she said. But a mother bird can change her mind, you see. There's no nest like an old nest for a brand new bird. Aww, what's in the nest? Yeah, she laid an egg. What color is that egg? Very good. It's a light blue egg. And when the egg popped open, the new bird thought so too. He likes that old nest. The end. Did you like that story? Were you able to figure out what might happen? It's called predicting. And it's something you should try and do when you read stories. Think about what might happen next. Make a prediction. All right, I'll be back later. Love you.